Mixing with Mike plugin of the week comes from Softube. It is the Bus Processor. This is a combination compressor in the vein of the SSL bus compressor, a saturation section, which allows you to add some tonal coloration and density, and a spatial processor here, allowing to add some width, a little air, and to, make sure that your bass is mono compatible. So there's a bunch of features on it. Let's dive right into it. What we have is the compressor section right in the middle. As I mentioned, it is very SSL G bus compressor like. That's seems to be what it's designed after. We got the makeup gain, threshold as you would expect. The attack settings, now it's variable, so you can kind of go everywhere in between. But if you actually click on the numbers, you will get to the exact settings from that compressor, and you could see them: 0.1, 0.3, 1, 3, 10, 30. Those are the exact settings that are there. Release times are the same here, including the auto, which is a dual stage release or a multi-stage release. If you set the tempo sync button on, it will convert over to musical values. Where have you seen that before? Go to any of my classes. You'll see it all the time. So this allows you to sort of dial in that way based on the timing. So it'll give you a vector, let's just say, that will simulate the movement or the length that would equal quarter note, eighth note. And it works if you achieve about 3 dB of gain reduction. That would be my suggestion. So that's one other option that you could throw in. And we have the ratio. Again, same type of thing where we can select for some different options. 2 to 1, 4 to 1, 10 to 1 were the primary ones that were available there. They added in a 1.3 to 1. That would allow you to do, something akin to a more RMS style compression. Maybe we could check that out. Hard knee, soft knee. Now, this is obviously something that doesn't exist, but it does allow you to shape the attack, which is very cool, right? So that gives you some additional control. So it's sort of like an SSL bus compressor with all the bells and whistles, all the adjustments under the hood that you wouldn't normally get. Then there's a range control. This is really super cool because what it does is it will actually limit or control the maximum amount of gain reduction that you have. And I find that very cool, so that if through the dynamics of your song you have sections where the gain reduction sort of kicks in a bit too much, this would be a way of controlling that. You could cap it at 3 dB or 4 dB, and then that would sort of guarantee that you're not over pushing or over pressing. Now, you have a wet-dry control that works with the compressor over here. You can actually stereo link or dual mono or anything in between, right? So this can sometimes add a bit of a widening effect, whereas linked, it will generally make the center image a little bit more solid, especially in a mix bus. So depending upon the mix, that can be a value. There is a low-cut filter that you can do just to sort of control if the low end is perhaps driving the compression more than the backbeat or snare. There's also a tone shift, which is like a tilt filter, and so that you can lean that more towards treble frequencies or more towards bass frequencies, depending upon what it is that you're doing. And you can also kick in an external sidechain, assuming that your host will accept external sidechains. Most, I think, do that at this point. All right, so that's the whole compressor section. So there's a lot there to digest. Next to that is the saturation section. So down here at the bottom, this is where you would engage each of the individual sections. So I'll engage the compressor because that's where we're going to start. The saturation essentially has one knob here that drives the amount of it. Okay, so this will drive saturation in. If you engage the tone button, then it engages the tone shift, and what this will do is it will be like an emphasis de-emphasis filter. So it will drive either more high frequency or low frequency into the saturation and do the opposite on the output to balance the frequency content. If you choose harmonic, then what you get is you get a more subtle harmonic, a smoother harmonic output, right? So if you drive the output here, you can get something that's pretty aggressive sounding. This would tame it down a bit. And then you also have a wet-dry control for that. So we'll start out 100% wet. You could do that to sort of dial in your sound, and then, switch to dry and just sort of mix in enough of what gives you whatever characteristic you feel like you're missing. Very powerful, right? So we'll play with that. You can also place this in the signal chain. It defaults as post compression, but you could place it pre compression, and this quick A/B will give you the ability just to see whether it is beneficial or not, which way it sounds better. There's an output gain control. That just is sort of your overall makeup. So as you go through all of your processes, that will just allow you to balance everything out on the back end. And then there's a spatial section, a spatial processing section. There's an air control. So this is essentially just adding in high frequencies. There's no other documentation that says at what frequency, how is it doing it. If it's the typical thing, it's basically like a shelving EQ where the frequency, corner frequency, is above 20K. Not always, but whatever. And then it tilts, so it tilts up the high frequencies. That's a typical air filter, but I'm not sure exactly what they did here. The width control. So now what this is doing is it's actually just controlling the level of the side signal. So you're either lessening the side or raising the side signal, which will make it more mono or make it more stereo, right? Or give you more on the side. So you have some adjustment there. And then a mono bass. So this is just monoing up at whatever the corner frequency is. You're just basically everything below that, you're sort of summing down into mono. So that can help with mono compatibility. So all the basic things that you need, or plenty of them, for digging in and getting a sound. Now, one of the things that they do mention somewhere in the manual is that this saturation is somewhat tape-like, although when you overdrive it, it doesn't sound that way to me, but used in a more subtle way, I can hear a little bit of that. And that would be a classic old, school combination. Bus compressor, head right into the tape machine, that type of thing. Let's see what it sounds like. So we'll start with a little track. Let's start with everything bypassed.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won.
Okay, and now let's engage. Put in our bus compressor here. Get a little bit, what I'm thinking here, let's just try like a little kind of quick pump and breathe type of thing. 30 millisecond attack, 100 millisecond release. We'll bypass the tempo sync for right now. Maybe I'll go to like a 4:1 ratio. This would be a common setting that I would do. We'll keep the knee hard, and let's just see what that sounds like.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long.
And here I can control, let me just kind of dial in this here to just drive a little bit away from the low frequency content. See if we can balance that out.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won.
That keeps the compression a bit more even. I can also control this here with the range control. So you could see the settings up here, right? So if I set this here, just say to 4 dB, it'll never give me more than 4 dB of gain reduction.
One last slip and we're done.
If I make it 0.
Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long. I'm lost in a dream in the sun.
In this case, the sidechain here going dual mono is not making much of a difference, since it's mostly what's driving all the compression is pretty much mono, so it's not making any kind of a difference there. So in another track, perhaps more of an electronic track where you have more stereo things going on, obviously that would be a bigger driving factor. But basically, that would be option one. One way to approach it. You could also approach it here a bit more. Let's kind of go with an auto setting, maybe a 3 millisecond attack, lighter ratio. Let's see what that sounds like.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long. I'm lost in a dream in the sun.
So let's roll with that. And you get the basic idea of it. I could get more aggressive with it and then use that as a parallel. I'm not sure if that's the best way to get to it. The one other quick way I could do it, let me just do a copy thing, would be to go to the low ratio thing. And I'm curious to see if this would work, where we go to fast attack release, do, I don't know, a couple 3 dB of makeup gain, low threshold. Let's see what we can blow up here.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long. I'm lost in a dream in the sun.
Be like a way of kind of creating a little like getting the threshold as low as possible, getting kind of an RMS kind of compression. I guess that would be the basic idea. But I'm going to go back to where we were with the previous settings just to kind of get back to that. All right, so we got that. Let's go through the saturation section. So if we enable the saturation section, we could do it from here. This is what it sounds like if we drive it hard.
One last slip and we're done. Tears
helps if you unbypass it.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won.
All right, and so obviously it's not meant to sound pretty. I'm like way overdoing it here just to kind of show you what it is, and also to show you how I can shift the tone with the pre-emphasis, post-emphasis EQ.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were.
So if we wanted to say add a bit more body and warmth into this, I could shift the bass tone lower. Let me dial this back a bit.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long. I'm lost in a dream in the sun. Dancing on your own little cloud, moving like there's no one around. Take a little.
Right. So a nice way to kind of bring in, just dial in a little bit of warmth, a little bit of density within a particular frequency area. You could also use it another way with the top end to just sort of bring in a little bit of edge or sizzle on the top. I don't think that this particular mix needs it. The final section here is the spatializer. Here we can add air. Let's see what that sounds like.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long.
We could also add in some width, which is going to be mostly effect.
One last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long.
Can't add in much because it tends to take away from the vocal, kind of sucks the vocal back into the center when you bring up the effect. But that's just what it is here. And then monoing up the bass. Again, the bass is centered. There's not a lot of width to it, so we're not going to hear a huge effect here. But
one last slip and we're done. Tears are coming one by one. I dreamt that we were lost, but I felt as if I had won. So long, so long, so long. I'm lost in a dream in the sun. Dancing on your own little cloud, moving like there's no one around. Take a little queen by the hand, hold her close.
so in combination, and you have the makeup gain at the output. It's pretty cool. We also have a bunch of controls on the metering. You have all the expanded meters and stuff on the side, and then as you go through the settings here, you can change it to LUFS and all of that sort of stuff. You can include tool tips and all of those other sorts of things. If you find a particular size of the window you like, you can save that as a default, etc., etc., etc. And so you can kind of dial in through those. Otherwise, really cool. When this came up, very pleasantly surprised by it. And it's always nice to have, like, an SSL bus compressor can sometimes be frustrating. Typically, you'll get, with a lot of the emulations, they'll add in the sidechain filter, just a little high pass type of thing. But this adds a lot of flexibility. And I find I didn't really dial into it too much, but playing with the knee also is very helpful because it really allows you to shape how the transients sort of cuts through. Now, this is not like a hard driving track. Maybe not the best example, for an SSL bus compressor. Maybe a Neve compressor might have been better choice for this particular track, but you can get a sense for what it's doing, how it digs into and pretty much captures that SSL sound in there, with just a basic setup here, and just the ability to get the exact settings by clicking on the numbers. That's probably where I would go to, and the ability to kind of go anywhere in between gives a lot of extra flexibility. Really cool one. I dig this. Hope you do too. Check it out. It's worth at least a demo and maybe a purchase. Plugin of the week from Softube is the bus processor.